Jeremy as Cook here, and today I'm making a fire. But this isn't just any fire. Forming part of the fuel are several projects I abandoned in 2017. You might call them failures, but I learned something from each one. Besides, this material can now keep us warm on this 70-degree December day here in Florida. My first failure comes to us courtesy of a Pocket 83 video called Obnoxious Air Horn. While his video is actually about something quite different, I took it to mean a Raid Siren, and went to work building my own miniature version. With minimal research, of course. The build started with me cutting out the mini Raid Siren in layers on my CNC router, which were then glued together. This would have been a good application for a 3D printer, but the router is what I have in my shop, so I'll use what I have at my disposal. Once assembled into bird, I attached it to my lathe in order to spin it up to 2500 RPM. Over top of that, I put the chopper assembly, meant to interrupt airflow out of the spinning element to produce the deep whining of an air horn. As you can see, or hear rather, this didn't work, so I redesigned it for larger channels inside, thinking the increased volume of air going through it would be helpful. I recycled some of the parts, sanding one side to make it smooth, then re-gluing. That didn't work either, and after another redesign with swept fins, I decided to hook it up to my Dremel tool, capable of 35,000 RPM speeds. As seen in a second, the results were less than spectacular. Perhaps I'll come back to this concept at some point, but for now I'll have to live without an air raid siren. Next project was something I call the SpinnerDrone. You spin it like a spinner, then you put it down and you can have it take off like a drone. So when you want to run out of batteries, you just spin it around and it's fun for the whole family. My thought was that this video would just go viral and that it'd sell, people would just want lots of these, lots of kits for their Hubsan X4 drones. So I decided to make several of them, get it up to mass manufacturing. Setting up on my CNC router was fine. I made several copies. Should have supported the middle a little bit more. But as it turns out, apparently nobody wanted these. So if you want one, they're available on Tindie. It's a nice strong frame for your Hubsan X4 drone or a spinner. On the subject of quadcopters, or drones as they're commonly known, I also came up with a GoPro Omni mount for a DJI-inspired drone. This I actually drew out in CAD on Onshape. You can see kind of the layout here. It's got a couple of pivots that go down to a central hub, and below it is the camera, the 360-degree camera. Here I'm cutting it out on my milling machine. That's the prototype base, and this is some carbon fiber rods that I cut out. I attached them to the drone via shaft collars and some custom mounts that I made that are hooked up here with epoxy. It's hanging down here kind of like a pendulum, which I'll come back to later. But the design would actually let the landing gear come up and down. I thought it worked pretty well. And right here is my weight. That's the exact weight of the Inspire. Or Omni, I should say. So, look at this. It took off. Successful. No problem, but it's going back and forth like a clock. Out of control. Well, yeah.
But I do think that also destabilized it going up that fast and then it trying to balance. I could shorten these rods. I mean, I could cut this in half if you wanted to.
After some modifications, shortening the rods, it took off fine, but this is with no weight on it. Once we knew that it worked somewhat without, we tested with a smaller Samsung camera. This tiny amount of weight it lifted with no problem as well. Bystanders thought it was interesting, and we eventually got kicked out of this field, but that's a story for another day, I suppose. So the real test was taking this weight of the Omni again, which it did with no problem. So I suppose this was a success in the end, just it happened in 2016, so it took me till now to produce it. Another project I tried to take on was to make a clock based on my logo. You can see here it's got the strand mouse like in my logo with the kind of a rising sun in the background. Everything's cut out my CNC router, and the problem with this was that just everything's not deep enough. There's just not enough room to do several colors that I was anticipating doing. So I think this kind of process is good for 2 colors, but maybe not 3 or 4 like I was trying to do. I think I'll probably return to this at some point in the future, but for now this was just trash. Another project that I took on that probably would have worked if I'd pursued it further was this microphone stand that flips down into position, then flips up out of my way. Actually, it's weirdly reminiscent of a catapult. You can see there it's attached on the back with a string or a cord rather, which allows it to flex one way or another, kind of restricted between the two. The build is made out of 1x2 wood that I had left over from some other projects. I cut it up with my miter saw, and then you can see it kind of assembled, kind of the early stages of it. That's an adapter that goes from 3/8 inch female to 5/8 inch male to fit my Yeti Snowball microphone that I was using at the time. Since then I've switched to a Samson Meteor, which is a little bit more compact and seems to have a lot of the same qualities, hopefully a little bit better, but I'm not here to do a review of the microphone itself. So there I'm putting a slot in there so I can put the adapter and screw through, deburring it with the tool there, and then I put a carriage bolt in here so I can just use a nut on one side and not have to worry about the other. This hole so that the string can go through, and that's the critical thing in this whole thing, is just that string that'll allow it to go down and up easily, or so the theory would be. Since this is on my did not finish video, obviously you can take that with a grain of salt. So there it is going together. One thing about this, and one reason I didn't pursue it quite as heavily as some of the other projects, is that it's meant to hook up to a 2x4 printer stand that I made. It's custom. I may be the only one that has one like this, so it did fit well, but realistically, who else is going to use something like this? So after tying that cord and inserting the insert, the 3/8 to 5/8 adapter, it was time to hook it up in real life. There it is, it inserts correctly into my printer stand, but it's a little bit low for my face. It does flip out of the way pretty well though, so that's pretty good. I think this would have been pretty good if I'd pursued it a little bit more, but in the end I came up with something that seemed to work a little bit better. That's right, I just drilled a hole into my desk. I've been hesitant to do this, but it worked pretty well and just allowed me to plug a normal microphone stand into it. Yeah, I guess my fear here is that it'll eventually get worn out, but at that point I can put in an insert, so I'm not too worried about it. This year I also attended the Maker Faire in New York, as well as Orlando, but this one I went to, I enjoyed it, but I didn't really produce a video of it. In fact, my video coverage of it was pretty spotty. You can see here I filmed a dragon, and this guy, which is pretty cool. He has a robotic band that you can play along with music. That was a lot of fun, but besides a few other clips, that's most of what I got in this thing. I took the whole trip with just my phone, no GoPro or anything, so I'm going to use that as an excuse. This is kind of neat, this wind fixture. Quite peaceful. And this was kind of cool. I mean, 20 years ago, this would have been thousands of dollars worth of CRT displays. I guess it still is, but just kind of hard to source them. Another thing I got there was this Tindie badge, which I guess this isn't really a failure whatsoever. It's just, well, where else am I going to put this video? It doesn't really fit in. So this was a lot of fun making this badge and got it to work. I should note that I represented Tindie this year at the Maker Faire, so if I happen to see you there, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Yay, and here's the badge. Now, on the same trip, I was at New York, and there's another failure. This is pretty much all the video I got of New York. It's from the bus stop going from New York to Boston. It's actually, the bus was pretty great as far as a transportation method, just thinking about how much time you lose going in the plane. So I'd consider that a success. And there's Boston. It's nice being just able to take a nap on the bus and stuff. And there's Boston again. I guess that's the harbor or some waterway. I don't know if it's officially the harbor, but it's near the aquarium. And there's me. I did that whole trip with just that little backpack, including my laptop. I'd consider that another success. So maybe it's not all failures in this video. So, thanks for watching this video. It's been a lot of fun showing off my projects in 2017. Obviously, some of them don't always work out as well as I'd hoped, but many of them do. So hopefully you've enjoyed. If you liked this video, please leave a comment, subscribe, like, or just let me know what more you'd want to see in 2018. On another note, if you want to see or hear even more of me, I'm doing a podcast with Max Maker called The Creativity Podcast, where art and engineering collide. We discuss our creative endeavors and stuff like that on a little bit more, I guess, a more lengthy basis. Also, big thanks to RNA Sounds for doing a lot of the music on my videos this year. Be sure to check them out if you have any musical needs. So, thanks again for watching. If you want to see some of my successes, do check out my channel and even subscribe.